Hello, and welcome to another edition of Journey to Stewardship, where we learn to be good stewards of what God has entrusted to us. I'm your host, the Reverend Doctor, and tonight I got a reminder for you tonight, a reminder. And then I got some scripture to support that. The reminder is that God will reward you for your faithful generosity and diligent labors. He will reward you for your faithful generosity and your labors and your diligent labors. He's going to reward you. Now, I got some scripture that will give a foundation for this. But He will reward you for your diligent labor and your faithful generosity. The first one is 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58, and I'm reading from the King James Version tonight. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Continue your work. Continue being a good steward. Continue being a good steward. If you have not been a good steward, start today. Start right now. Being a good steward, but then be unmovable. Always abounding in the work of the Lord. Because your work for the Lord will not be in vain. He will reward you. He will reward you. Your work will not be in vain. The second scripture is Galatians chapter 6, and I got my trusted device here. Galatians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 and 10. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. That means that as a good steward, that you're not to be weary in well-doing. Surely it gets tiring, surely sometimes it's unappreciated what you do, but don't get weary. Because in due season, at that right time, you will reap. But you don't faint. Stay with it. I know it's hard. It's hard being a good steward, living in this world. It's hard being a good steward. But continue to be the good steward. And every opportunity that we get, we ought to be nice to somebody. Every opportunity we get, we ought to be generous to somebody. Show somebody some generosity. Every opportunity we get, we need to do some labor for the Lord. Every opportunity we get. And especially to those of the household of faith. Especially those that are your fellow church members. Well, if you don't go to church, then find somebody that goes to church and be a good steward. Be a good steward, because you will reap the benefits. He said that He will provide for you. That He will give you, that you will reap your harvest. That He will reward you for your generosity and your labor. Hebrews, next one is Hebrews, and every time I do Hebrews, I got to tell you a little joke. In Hebrews, a man asked his wife to fix him some coffee. She said no. He asked her why. She said because in the Bible it says Hebrews, not she-brews. That's the little joke that I do every time we do the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10, starting at verse 10. For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have shewed toward His name, in that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister. And we desire that every one of you do shew the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end, that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Being a good steward. That God's not going to forget what you've done. Now, surely he's not going to, now let's look at this clear. He's not going to forget the good things you did, and he's surely not going to forget the bad things you did. So you need to start doing more good things, being a good steward, than the other things. God is not going to forget that. God is not going to forget your faithful generosity. God is not going to forget your labor of love. He's not going to do it. So it's best that we be good stewards. That we be good stewards. And the last scripture for the night is Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4, verse 17. Not because I desire a gift, but I desire fruit that may abound to your account. Now here's Paul writing to the Philippians. He said, look, what I'm doing, being a good steward, is not that I'm looking for a gift, but so that fruit may abound to your account. That helping you help you build up your account for God. Helping you to do your work for God. Helping you to be a good steward. Now, God is not going to forget your labor of love. He's not going to forget your generosity. So giving you to the church and all of that, you say, well, I can't give right now because I ain't got no job. Well, you got time. You got a talent. Give something to the church. Give something. You know somebody that goes to church. Get them a couple dollars. Show God that you're trying to be a good steward. Now, I don't expect a guy that's been out of work, you know, that when he get his stimulus check or get his unemployment check, that he's going to give 10% to the church. I know he's not going to do that. But he can give something. God provided for you to get that, so then give something back to him. Because I'm going to tell you this. If you're not faithful in your generosity, he's going to take it from you and give it to somebody else. If you do not show your labor of love, then he won't bless you. So what I'm saying this evening is for us to be good stewards, is to remember that God is going to reward us for our faithful generosity and our diligent labor. And he's going to reward us beyond our wildest dreams. Whatever it is that you can dream of, God now steps in and he's above that. It's because he's God and God all by himself. He's not going to forget your faithful generosity. So give to the church. Give to the ministry. I mean, if you ain't got no ministry to give to, you can give to my ministry. Church on Wheels Spoken Word out of Orange City, Florida. Go to the Givelify app and you could give that way. Give generosity, something. Find a church. You pass 6 of them on the way to the grocery store. You know somebody in your family that go to church. Be generous. Show your generosity. Give them $5 to put in church for you. And let God work on the rest. Being a good steward. Being a good steward. And by being a good steward, I want you to remember that God is not going to forget your faithful generosity. He's not going to forget that. You say, well, I don't have but $5 and I can give $5 a week to the church. Well, then give it faithfully. And one day, God is going to bless you and you'll be able to give $10 that week. He'll bless you again. You might be able to get $15, $20 that week. But show your faithfulness. Being a good steward. And remember that God is going to reward you for your faithful generosity and your diligent labor in his name. So every opportunity you get to be a good steward, to faithfully give to the church and to spread the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, you can't lose. You can't lose. So are you being a good steward today? Well, if you're not a good steward today, if you don't think you're a good steward today, then start today. Start right now. Being a good steward. Give faithfully to the church, to the ministry, and do your labor of love. Spread the good news of Jesus Christ. That's all you have to do. And I guarantee you, you will be rewarded. In fact, you can hold the Reverend Doctor accountable for that. You say, well, I'm going to do this, and the Reverend Doctor said I do this, and he'll reward me. Do it. And watch what he does. In your faithful and diligent generosity, when you give, he will make sure you always have it to give. And your labor of love. When you do your labor of love, he will always put people in front of you so that you can spread the good news of the gospel. And those people in front of you, that he put in front of you, may be living in your house. They may be your friends that are searching, but they don't want you to know. And you don't have to ask, you just do it. Just be a good steward and let them watch. God will reward you for your faithful generosity and your labor of love in his name. That's a winning combination. Give it a try today. Start today. Start today. Right now. Being a good steward. And always remember that God will reward you for your faithful generosity in giving to the ministry and for your diligent labor working in the ministry. Well, clock on the wall says I got to go. This has been another edition of Journey to Stewardship. And I'm your host, the Reverend Doctor. And I always sign off by saying, well done, thy good and faithful servant.